These are the funniest Scooby Doo episodes from Mystery Incorporated, starting with a librarian who takes things way too seriously. In Season 2, Episode 12, Pawn of Shadows, the gang encounters what might be the most overdramatic villain in cartoon history. This isn't just any librarian. This character delivers every line like they're performing Shakespeare while discussing late fees. The episode throws joke-a-minute monsters at you, but the real comedy gold comes from this librarian who treats local urban legends like they're matters of national security. Every dramatic pause, every theatrical gesture, every time they explain the ancient curse with complete sincerity, it's all perfectly ridiculous. The show knows exactly how silly these old mystery tropes are, and this librarian character becomes the perfect vehicle for poking fun at every serious villain who ever explained their evil plan in unnecessary detail. But if you thought an overly serious librarian was funny, wait until you see what happens when someone actually enjoys being in mortal danger. In Season 1, Episode 17, Escape from Mystery Manor, Fred proves that one person's nightmare is another person's theme park. The gang gets trapped in a haunted house filled with deadly traps that would make the Saw movies jealous. But instead of screaming in terror, Fred gets genuinely excited about the craftsmanship. While everyone else is having comedic breakdowns about potentially dying, Fred is over here admiring the engineering and asking if he can take notes. The episode turns horror movie logic completely upside down by making the supposed victim the most enthusiastic person in the room. Every time a new trap activates, the gang despairs a little more, while Fred gets a little more thrilled. It's like watching someone tour a haunted house while complimenting the interior design. The comedy comes from this complete subversion of what you expect from a horror setting. Speaking of unexpected reactions to scary situations, Christmas monsters usually aren't this entertaining. In Season 2, Episode 10, Wrath of the Krampus takes everything you know about heartwarming Christmas episodes and throws it out the window. The Krampus is targeting Crystal Cove's naughty kids, which sounds terrifying until you realize the episode treats it like a twisted holiday special. The festive send-up humor hits differently when you're watching a Christmas monster story that actually commits to being both festive and monstrous. Velma's rivalry with Angel adds another layer of comedy as they compete even while investigating a holiday horror. The episode manages to be tongue-in-cheek about Christmas traditions while still delivering genuine scares and laughs. Every Christmas decoration becomes potentially sinister, every holiday song gets a darker twist, but somehow, it all feels more fun than frightening. The show takes the concept of Christmas specials and asks what would happen if the Christmas spirit included a healthy dose of supernatural justice. But Christmas isn't the only holiday that gets weird in Crystal Cove. In Season 2, Episode 9, Grim Judgment brings Puritan moral panic to modern times with hilariously outdated results. Hebediah Grimm is judging Crystal Cove's youth, and his standards are exactly as ridiculous as you'd expect from someone whose idea of corruption includes teenagers having fun. The mock courtroom scenes play out like a comedy sketch, where someone from the 1600s tries to understand modern teenage behavior. The seeing double gags and social satire work together to create some of the show's slyest humor. Every time Grimm tries to apply his ancient moral framework to contemporary situations, it gets more absurd. The episode essentially asks what would happen if the most uptight historical figure you can imagine had to deal with regular teenage drama, and the answer is pure comedy gold. Grimm takes himself completely seriously while being completely out of touch, which makes every dramatic pronouncement unintentionally hilarious. But moral panic isn't the only kind of obsession that creates comedy in this show. In Season 1, Episode 24, Dead Justice showcases what happens when Sheriff Stone's cowboy fantasies collide with reality. A ghostly cowboy villain appears, and Stone immediately goes full Western mode with results that are both endearing and ridiculous. The episode fills itself with every Western cliché you can think of, but filtered through Stone's modern police work, creates this weird hybrid of old-fashioned showdowns and contemporary crime solving. His dry-witted banter with the gang gets funnier as he gets more invested in his cowboy persona. The police parody antics work because Stone is genuinely trying to be helpful while being completely ridiculous about it. Every Western trope gets applied to suburban mystery solving, creating this collision between genres that shouldn't work but absolutely does. Stone's enthusiasm for being a cowboy sheriff transforms routine police work into something resembling a theme park experience. Music can be just as transformative, but usually not in the way you'd expect. In Season 1, Episode 5, The Song of Mystery, proves that zombies are way more fun when they just want to dance. A ska band's music turns Crystal Cove's kids into zombies, but these aren't your typical brain-eating monsters. Instead of shambling around looking for victims, they're breaking into coordinated dance numbers. The musical chase sequences become these elaborate production numbers where the gang is running from zombies who are more interested in hitting their choreography than catching anyone. The episode subverts every zombie movie trope by making the threat completely harmless and oddly entertaining. Every time you expect traditional zombie horror, you get synchronized dancing instead. The comedy comes from this complete inversion of expectations. The music that should be driving people to violence is actually just making them really good dancers. Comical misunderstandings pile up as the gang tries to solve a mystery where the monsters are too busy performing to be properly menacing. Sometimes, the most ridiculous monsters are the ones that make the least sense. In Season 1, Episode 4, Revenge of the Man Crab, takes place during a beach volleyball tournament, which is already a weird setting for a monster mystery. Then they introduce the Man Crab, a villain whose entire existence raises more questions than it answers. Why is it part man, part crab? How does it move around? Why is it kidnapping volleyball players specifically? The episode never bothers explaining any of this, because the absurdity is the point. Fred's impractically elaborate traps become even more ridiculous when they're designed to catch something that's half seafood. Shaggy and Scooby's rescue attempts get funnier as they try to apply normal problem-solving to a completely abnormal situation. The visual humor comes from watching everyone treat this bizarre creature like it's a normal monster threat. Every interaction with the man crab highlights how weird it is that nobody questions why this thing exists. The episode commits fully to its ridiculous premise and never tries to make it make sense. Horror movie logic gets even weirder when it involves meeting your heroes. In Season 1, Episode 13, Night Fright, sends Shaggy and Scooby to meet Vincent Van Ghoul, a Vincent Price parody who's exactly as dramatic as you'd expect. The episode becomes a love letter to classic horror while simultaneously making fun of horror fandom. Shaggy and Scooby try to play hero in front of their idol, leading to hammy overacting and increasingly ridiculous attempts to impress him. The running gags about horror movie conventions get funnier as the real monster crashes the party and nobody can tell what's part of the show and what's actually dangerous. Every horror trope gets exaggerated through the lens of fan behavior, creating this self-aware parody that works on multiple levels. The episode pokes fun at both classic horror movies and the people who love them, but does it with enough affection that it never feels mean-spirited. Van Ghoul himself becomes a walking parody of dramatic horror hosts, delivering every line like it's the most important thing ever said. Sometimes mixing genres creates even more interesting comedy possibilities. In Season 2, Episode 15, Heart of Evil, brings Dynamite and Blue Falcon to Crystal Cove for a superhero crossover that highlights how incompetent most superheroes actually are. The episode takes every superhero trope you know and filters it through the Mystery Incorporated lens, revealing how silly most of them are when you think about them logically. Dynamite's robotic malfunctions create slapstick comedy, while Blue Falcon's over-serious heroic posturing contrasts perfectly with the gang's more practical approach to mystery solving. The absurdist dialogue between the robotic characters and Scooby's team creates this weird comedy where nobody's quite speaking the same language. Every superhero convention gets examined and found wanting when compared to good old-fashioned detective work. The episode asks what would happen if competent problem solvers met incompetent superheroes, and the answer involves a lot of secondhand embarrassment and mechanical malfunctions. The crossover format allows the show to comment on superhero stories while still telling its own mystery. Academic settings can be just as ripe for comedy, especially when cosmic horror gets involved. In Season 1, Episode 22, Shrieking Madness, combines college satire with Lovecraftian horror in ways that shouldn't work but absolutely do. The gang investigates a college where the villain literally glued an octopus to his face, which is both the most ridiculous and most committed approach to cosmic horror you'll ever see. College life gets the full satirical treatment as every academic stereotype gets pushed to supernatural extremes. The edgy Happy Tapioca reference shows the episode's willingness to push boundaries while still maintaining its cartoon sensibility. Pop culture jokes mix with college anxiety to create comedy that works on multiple levels. The episode takes the stress of higher education and adds tentacled professors, making regular academic pressure seem reasonable by comparison. Every college experience gets exaggerated through the lens of cosmic horror, turning normal university problems into supernatural threats. The villain's dedication to his octopus face aesthetic becomes funnier the longer the episode goes on, especially as everyone treats it like a reasonable life choice. Celebrity voice acting can elevate already ridiculous concepts to new heights. In Season 2, Episode 3, The The Night the Clown Cried Part 2 features Mark Hamill voicing Crybaby Clown in what might be the most over-the-top villain performance in cartoon history. Hamill brings his Joker energy to a character whose main trait is crying, creating this weird combination of menacing and pathetic that works perfectly. The kidnapping plot gets overshadowed by Fred's completely oblivious heroics and Daphne's new boyfriend, Baylor Hotner, who's obviously a Twilight parody. The meta humor works because the episode acknowledges how ridiculous everything is while still committing to the story. Hamill's performance turns every line delivery into a comedic event, especially when he's trying to be threatening while sobbing. The episode layers different types of comedy, celebrity voice acting, pop culture parody, and character-based humor, without any of them getting in each other's way. Every scene with Crybaby Clown becomes an exercise in how far you can push a ridiculous concept before it breaks. And the answer is apparently much further than you'd expect. But even Mark Hamill's crying clown can't compete with the episode that's considered the absolute peak of the series' comedy. In Season 2, Episode 7, Gathering Gloom, earned its reputation as the show's funniest episode by perfectly balancing sharp comedy with genuine character development. The episode features a villain whose humanizing twist creates comedy through subverted expectations rather than just ridiculous behavior. Every comedic beat lands because the episode earned them through careful setup and character work. The snappy comedic timing makes every joke feel effortless, while the touching character moments give the humor emotional weight. This isn't just funny for the sake of being funny, it's funny because it reveals something true about the characters and their relationships. The episode proves that the best comedy comes from understanding what makes characters tick, and then putting them in situations that highlight those traits. Every transition creates opportunities for both laughs and character growth, making the humor feel integrated into the story rather than just added on top. The balance between comedy and heart makes this episode stand out even in a series known for both qualities. If you want to see more cartoon comedy breakdowns, click the video on screen right now.